What is learnerization?
You Google side of an internet, you get the answer.
Students want what we're teaching them or what they're learning.
What are the challenges involved?
The act of learning has become so structured that it almost feels like you are in a straitjacket. The professor needs to learn as much as the students.
One thing that you think could make a difference immediately in a class somewhere.
You need to watch this podcast.
This is a process.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Bianchi. I'm an associate professor of English at Virginia Commonwealth University in Qatar. And I'm very excited to share with you a new idea, which is learnerization. Some of you might be asking, learnerization? I've never heard of this before. Well, this is an ancient concept that people like Socrates knew. When they would meet with young minds, they would ask question after question to dig deeper into those riches that we have inside. Well, somewhere along the line, we've lost our focus in education. Copernicus taught us that the world is not the center, but the sun is the center, and the earth simply revolves around the sun. Well, in the same way, I'm here to say that in education, we've lost our center, where we make the system and the learning outcomes and the performances the center, and we've lost the learner in the process. Well, the center in education is the learner and learning. And that's what learnerization is all about. This journey didn't happen yesterday. It came to me over many years, starting way back in the UAE in the year 2000. I would teach students, and they'd be looking at me and thinking, why are we here? What are we doing in this classroom? We'd rather be out in the desert having fun. And I was agreeing with them because I couldn't see what we were learning together had any relevance to them. And so this got me thinking about my PhD, which was ultimately about Arabizi, which was a language that they had discovered on their own. It was their own learning. And fast forward many years, I had moved to Qatar and the COVID pandemic started. And all of a sudden, we're in a place where students were showing up online. We were all at home. The computers would be on, and there'd just be black boxes I'd be staring at with an initial or a name and no response. And people were just passing. And then as the pandemic ended, we entered the age of AI. And all of a sudden, my students who had trouble with words in English would be turning in flawless essays written perfectly. And I'd ask them, well, these are great. Tell me about these ideas. And they'd look at me and say, I don't know. The computer did that. And at that point, it struck me that we're really missing the point. The learner is no longer the center of learning for us anymore. And learnerization is about rediscovering that. It's about putting the learner's needs, hopes, and dreams at the center of learning so that what happens in the classroom is really meaningful and life-changing and empowering. And so here we are going to be exploring what it is to learn and relearn, what it means to be a learner. Why would we come together, and how can we benefit each other and ourselves? And so I'm very excited to explore these concepts with you and bring you along on this incredible journey that doesn't just transform a learner as a student, but the teacher as a learner as well, and everybody in the system. So thank you, and looking forward to some dynamic conversations with you. Welcome, everybody, to episode 1, What is Learnerization? My esteemed guests, if you could please introduce yourselves to us.
My name is Professor Akintunde Akinyade, Professor of Comparative Theology at Georgetown University in Qatar.
My name is Muhammad Muddathir Ali. I'm a senior researcher at the College of Islamic Studies at Hamad Bin Khalifa University.
My name is Aya Zaina. I am a senior designer. I also am alumni of VCU Arts, Virginia Commonwealth University, and I also teach.
welcome everybody today. I'm very excited to have my esteemed colleagues and friends, a former student of mine, star pupil, and we're here together today because in our own way, each and every one of us is a champion of learnerization. We all fundamentally believe in the power of learning to transform and to make our world a better place, not just for the individual who's doing the learning, but for everyone that they come into contact. But on that note, we have a fundamental question. What is learnerization? So if I can ask you, Dr. Akin, to start us off.
I think for me, the most important thing is to flip the lens and to actually understand that it's not about what I want to teach, it's about what students want to learn. So it's important to have a student-centered focus right from the beginning.
Rob, I'm going to be honest. I'll probably be able to answer this question by the end of the episode or this podcast, because I'm in the process of learning the idea of learnerization. But from what I've heard so far and read, and a lot of that comes from you, Rob, is that learnerization is about co-creation. It's about creating knowledge not by yourself, but learning and learning from the students. So it's teaching and learning from the students.
And I'm on that same journey with you because this is a definition that I'm exploring as I go. And if I were ever to say that I've mastered learnerization, I think I'd be disingenuous because it is a lifelong process. So thank you for sharing that. Aya, what are your views?
Yeah, I guess we're all learners in the same pond. I think for me, learnerization was within your story itself of connection, of being able to connect students to their instructors, students to their classroom, students to their resources, students to each other as well. And I think that idea of co-creation, I love that because it is not a one-way street. There's always two parties to it. And the more that there is that reciprocal of value, that reciprocal of what do I have to offer and what do you have to give, I think it just, for me, being able to value each other and being able to co-create, and that there is a voice and that there is an opinion for everyone together. I think that's such an idealistic way of thought, but I also think that there is space for that in our communities, and there is space for that in our societies today.
And so you've just leading me right to my next question, which is, why now? If this concept was ancient and has somehow been lost in the process, why do we need to rediscover learnerization in the here and now?
Again, brilliant example that I'm going to keep going back to. Why not now, right? Why learnerization not now? Because you mentioned it yourself. Google, side of an internet, you get the answer, right? And it becomes about information. AI, I ask a question, I get an answer. I don't need to know it. I don't need to remember it. Plus, I'm forgetful. I really am. I think humans are forgetful in nature. So it's that idea of I need to be able to, and if it's not becoming, and I think, again, going back to part of your research papers that I've read, it's not about transfers of information, it's about acts of cognition. Being able to really internalize that information, act within it, give it the roots and the stems that it needs to be able to communicate afterwards. And I think if everything is so readily available, then what are we offering, right? That AI question, why are we here? Then I think there's so much individuality and there's so much content to the individual himself that there's so much to offer for a human perspective. Learning.
That's beautiful. It sounds like you're talking about learning to be authentic in a world where nowadays everything is prefab and we're being given identities and given ideas, and this is the truth. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
So in addition to authenticity, I think it's also very important for us to think about relevance. Students want relevance. Students want what we're teaching them or what they're learning within that space, within the classroom space, to connect with their identity, with their context, with their life, with their their aspirations and with their futures. So relevance is very important. So I think we can put authenticity next to relevance.
We have come to a point where education has become so structured. The act of learning has become so structured that it almost feels like you are in a straitjacket. And we need to come out of it. We need to come out of it to make learning authentic, like you said, Rob. The way our courses are designed, the way a lot of universities and institutions play the number game and churn out articles. And, these are the requirements and the learning outcomes that you've got to meet. All that needs to not necessarily change, but at least we should go and reflect upon these things. And that's why learnerization needs to start right away. And I totally agree with Aya's response. Well, why not?
So, I mean, as I'm hearing you, and I mean, I'm so grateful that I know you. It's such a privilege because we're, speaking from the same, heart, basically. But I've heard what you just said about institution, and I thought about the image of the straitjacket, and I thought, yeah, institutionalized, right? But there's a structure there, and for me, that could be part of the challenge. So that's what I want to ask you all. What are the challenges involved in learnerizing right now? What are we up against? What are we facing as individuals, people that really care about our students and want them to be at the center? What do you see as the challenges that the system is posing to us?
I think the basic challenge is awareness itself. To be aware of the deficiencies and pitfalls of the current educational system, the modes of learning, use the strengths that we have in that mode, and evolve into a system where we are better aware of how learning can become better and make us better human beings.
Awareness is very important, but at the same time, we also need to understand that it's going to take time. So this is a process.
Oh yes,
and it's not going to drop from the sky in one day. So I think we need to be aware that we have to put time into this. We have to be diligent. We have to be intentional about crafting this. And how do we put this together?
Yeah, both of those points make perfect sense. The time, it's not an overnight process, and asking those right questions, right? Because if I hear what you've said, it reminds me of this idea of a learning outcome or a learning objective that's been given to me by my program on my syllabus, something that I look at as a non-negotiable. And yet maybe in revising a course, rather than having stated goals, the questions change, those learning outcomes turn into learning questions. And that creates that openness.
oh yes.
So Aya, how about you? What do you think about this? What challenges would you see in learnerizing?
So for me, I think I really echo what everyone here has said. And I think I definitely agree with Dr. Hamad about looking at the strengths and the weaknesses and what are all the other factors that play a part. And it kind of reminds me of a SWOT analysis, right? What are the strengths? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? And what are the things that you can add? And I think for me, it goes back to the idea of co-creation. And so we're asking a student to co-create with us. That in itself is a very foreign idea. I mean, even for me, being part of an educational system for 12 years, that I come to a classroom and it's a hands-down system of, okay, this is the material, this is what you have to study, and you're just here to receive. And now we're telling you students, you know what? No, I'm gonna come into a classroom, I'm gonna ask you, what are you interested in? What are your individualistic habits or strengths? And what do you wanna get out of this? And so as a student, if I would put myself back in those shoes, I'd be like, I don't know, you're the instructor, you have the answers. You're supposed to be able to guide me through that process. And it is such a foreign, that I think that's a challenge that students may receive. But I think if it's a question where syllabus is not taken not only as a structure that's a checklist, but also a structure that's a structure that you can act with, right? A structure that you can take and you can kind of measure out life itself, just like using a SWOT analysis in my studies, but also I can use it in my life, in my looking at my missions, my visions, my values. And I think being able to co-create and being able to, being able to listen to each other and take each other's values and opinions into consideration.
Yeah.
That's so rich. As we're bringing things together, what are some final thoughts in terms of suggestions? If you were, for people out there that might be listening to us or watching us, what advice could you give them if they wanted to try Learnerization today? One thing that you think could make a difference immediately in a class somewhere.
Yeah, I would say, see, right from the beginning, claim your space. It's very important for you to claim that space and also to build flexibility into what you're trying to do. So especially with the final projects or whatever. So claim your space and also be flexible.
Mm-hmm. So in this regard, are you thinking about the instructors claiming space or empowering a learner, a student, to claim that space? Or is it both?
Both. Yeah, it has to be both. Yeah.
I'm reminded of a small anecdote. A professor, when he started off, when he was an assistant professor, and he went to the class for the first time, and he saw students sitting in front of him, he was not able to realize that there was about 6 to 7 years of learning, education, innovation that had taken place since he had learned. So the professor needs to learn as much as the students. And without that, it's not taking place. So you need to create awareness. You need to be, you need to watch this podcast. You need to watch this podcast. And get into that learnerization mode.
I mean, that's such an authentic answer. And it kind of like, we're instructors of our own spaces. We're kind of challenging that system, and it takes you back a little bit. And so I really am appreciative of the space that we're kind of harnessing. And I think for me, it's that listening. And I keep going back to the idea of co-creation and also taking up your space, but also taking ownership. So whatever you're learning, take ownership of what you're taking and really internalize it and make it a part of factor of, your way of life. So, a classroom is not in a classroom only, and it extends beyond that.
Well, I can't thank you enough for the enrichment. I feel like we are co-creating here today. And I feel, just in summary, I've heard several really powerful concepts. I've heard relevance. I've heard identity. I've heard co-creation. I've heard values. I've heard learning. And to me, Learnerization is all of that. And fundamentally, it's about that commitment to really wanting to bring out the best in ourselves and in each other. Mm-hmm. And in so doing, we're transforming our societies. So thank you for being part of this exciting process. I'm really looking forward to continuing this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Rob.
Thank you. Shukran.